the Fernandez guitar. The reason I'm playing this rather than a Les Paul really is because it's got the ability to be able to sustain notes. So if I show you what that means, say I hit an E. Now that's going to sustain until the battery life runs out in the pickup on this. That's a great facility to have because there's no tyranny of volume. Okay, we can hold a conversation over the level of that little practice amp down there. You know, years ago that wasn't the case. You know, when you saw Hendrix at the Isle of Wight, and he goes back and turns up, you know, those amps, and you know it's on stun, and had he survived, I doubt the hearing would have been that great these days. You know, so I'll say, you know, watch out for your ears, guys, because you know I'll do anything I can to you know, not play that loud, but try and get the tone anyway. So in terms of tonal difference, the different types of sustain, for instance. So it can get almost like a backwards effect by just not actually plettering in the note. So if I hit the note like that, I've got that. But if I you see what I'm doing? It's just like if it engages. Okay, so you've got that ability with these pickups. The other thing that it can do is it'll give you the note, but it'll give you the harmonic of the note. That's particularly good at getting that on the second string. So that all elusive upper harmonic that guitarists are always looking for. So you know, if it's, let's get it a little harder. There's quite a lot of upper harmonic there. There's a lot of upper harmonic there. So without that, it'll be. Sorry, let's get it out. Or more ooey. But the other thing that these pickups do with the sustain is not just giving you the note, and the second string's particularly good at getting that upper harmonic. But if I switch to just the harmonic, I'll get this thing again, not volume dependent. So you've got that thing again. You know, if we think of Hendrix. Again, you know, when it's creeping up the octave and going to the straight harmonic. So then you can use that, and it's great for dive bombs, and it'll keep going for quite some time. So good for police car noises with the this thing, the Floyd Rose tremolo. Let me just tighten it slightly. The Floyd Rose tremolo. If I get that going. You know, great for all those things. So great for chases. So you've got to sort of, it's a bit like Keystone Cops in a way, isn't it? You know, you've got that sort of the police car chase thing. So you can mix those tones. So you could be going. And switch to the upper harmonic, almost like a wah wah. It's got all of that in it. So it's quite vocal. Again, great with the sustain. You know, great with the tremolo arm. So you've got all that kind of. If you wanted to hit a harmonic and just, if you were tired in the middle of a solo but you were enjoying yourself. Got all that, and of course it's helpful to change the tone of the sustain as well. So another useful little trick is to use the tremolo arm not actually to just tremolo, but to get it to tighten again, to do a kind of burble sound. Now, I call it burbling. Someone else may call it something else, but if you've got a sound that's like a sort of, say you've gone... It's quite a useful thing. It's a very angry little sound. So tremolo arms are great for that. Sustainers are great for that. If I were to use a chopping motion here, it's all pulling on, hammering on, pulling off with the left hand. But if I engage the this burbling technique, then it's... sounding very heavy metal here with all that sort of stuff, but it is very useful just tonally to be able to do that, I find. So you don't always have to be exhausting yourself to do something fast either. So the technique that I originally called nailing, but it ended up being called tapping by Eddie Van Halen. It was something that he does with the pads there, but I was doing this back in 1971, so I think it's the earliest anyone was using this technique. But it's two-hand tapping, so you're hammering on and hammering off with this hand, but you're using this as an extra finger, and that can go anywhere. So so it's a way of playing very, very fast, but it's maximum mobility with minimum of movement. A bit like the eagle, really, of not taxing himself, So so I figured no one really needs to play any faster than that ever, but I'm not tiring myself doing that. It's not as if I'm plectrumming every note. Yeah, I mean, there are ways, of course, you could do that. You could do a run where you were doing it, where you were hitting every note of every string, but I always found that very risky. As you say, and I'm using the nail. Okay, and I'm hitting every note there, and I'm doing it with the edge of my nail. The reason I've got nails is so I can play the nylon. That's another factor. But again, I think if you've got a very sort of responsive, attacky sound, as I've got with this treble booster from Pete Cornish, if you did half that, so each string I'm just hitting once, I'm being quite economical there with that. So so it will be the same as, for instance, I'm only hitting it once. So these things, if you mix the tapping technique with that, you could have. Again, I'm not exhausting myself doing that, so I was always interested in what sounds fluent, but is taxing me to a minimum.
When you first developed that technique, what were you trying to play?
I think I was trying to play something vaguely like toccata and fugue, and I can't even remember what the thing was, but I was probably going originally, and then it ended up being I think the first thing I recorded was in the solo from Musical Box. There's a bit which goes a bit like that, and some of the Genesis phrases, and then there's another one which is actually was on the first string originally. It's not quite as responsive on the first string, but Let me just take off some of the distortion here, and see we're making a little noise here. I'm doing a triplet maneuver here with this hand. It looks a little bit like a galloping horse. A three-legged horse in this case, but there you go. It's quite handy. One of the moves that that you can use with an electric or with a nylon is these scrolly sort of moves, arpeggiating forwards. And you're using this finger to come back. Quite useful. It's quite sort of all these things are useful. Let's try again. Ideally best done on nylon because nylon's got the tension but if you can get any of this stuff into rock, believe me, then you're winning. You can do different things. So different techniques, okay. Different techniques. Something that took me ages to get right. I remember Eric Clapton famously saying many years ago with Cream that finger vibrato, that can take you quite a long time to get right. Yes. And in my case, it certainly did. You do a freestanding one. Very useful. Or if it's, on a note without bending. And I often use three fingers on a string to make it possible. If I'm up against the... But the way to learn it, if you don't do that already, and you think, oh God, I wish I could do that, is slow and wide. Do not be afraid of it. I'm using very light strings, so I'm not fighting against the tension of these strings. You can, if you want to pivot, just do it with these two. I do believe I saw Eric doing that at one point, thinking, or maybe that's to get extra, momentum here. But it's a handy thing because you're spreading the weight over those three fingers. So as you're bending up a tone, you've got that, and it's the mainstay of a lot of blues guitar playing. I probably spent more time practicing that than any other technique. I think with guitar, you can spend ages doing your scales and everything, but I prefer to hear one note nicely tortured and screaming. I'd rather have something like that myself. You could risk a freestanding one. In other words, not having the thumb supporting you. There is the danger that you will drop the string, of course, doing that, but you can get a very fast vib that way. Best to choose where the tension is least on the neck, which is why I'm doing it in that position on the third string, because it's not the same. If I'm doing... I can do that fairly reliably, but if I try that on the second string, I'll probably drop the string. Well, I didn't, but I won't risk it on the night live with people. So that's a few little things.